Ooh, don't I look like a cheeky monkey? So how you doing this evening, my adepts? All my relations? I hope all is well. Today was a sunny day. Today was a interesting day. Today was, again, another day of grayness. Even though it was a sunny day, the clouds were puffy and pretty, and it was cold, but not that cold, 41 degrees. We're still fall. We are a good 10, 15 days away from winter, and this weekend we're supposed to have quite a big snowfall, and Wednesday we're supposed to have a big snowfall, and next weekend we're supposed to have a big snowfall. Whether that's true or not, whether it happens, if it does, ooh, it's going to be tough for your Sensei Al Bob here. If I'm up on the mountain, we probably won't get off till spring. Um, but that's like a metaphor for where we presently find ourselves. You know, George H. was eulogized yesterday, and everyone said, what a great man, what a gentleman, all of that, right? But, his great grandfather, his father, Prescott Bush himself, they were men of the hidden hand. They were men of the mob. And, Donnie, he just is a punk, and, he had that TV show, The Apprentice. He was the apprentice, you know. He was being readied to be the monkey in the middle. And, he is being attacked from every angle in the universe. And I have all these QAnon friends who say what a genius he is, and he's going to bring down the dark state and da 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 da. Well, I'm not quite sure about that. I keep telling you, don't believe me. I don't know anything. You know, I just have a bunch of stories for you. You know, and as I think of being a cheeky monkey. When I lived in Australia, I had a friend who used to call me a cheeky monkey. He was a cheeky monkey. We were both brothers. We were the young Turk cheeky monkeys, because everybody else was trying to. When we were there in 1977 in Melbourne, that was the Summer of Love. They were redoing 1967. And but with their Australian little twist. And the Australian people are quite amazing because, Australia was, they said, oh, it's a colony of crooks. Well, they weren't kidding around. But it wasn't like the common thief was sent there, because to take somebody from London and bring them to Australia, that cost a lot of money. So these weren't common thieves. And they weren't even big time thieves. Who and what they were sociopathic members of the ruling class. And they sent them there so they wouldn't be, mucking it up in London. Oh, buddy, I'm doing pretty good. I'm in one of those quandaries, one of those strange times, moments where I've been, every time before I start a show, I sit and, I hit that little inbox button, and people lay all kinds of things down for me. And I'm looking at, like I said, George H.W.'s funeral, and he was such a, he was not Prescott Bush was not his blood father. George H.W. was the son of a Russian spy who was Nikola Tesla's assistant. He was a great mathematician. Tesla was a mystic scientist, mystic inventor, mystic. He went into state, where I show you guys how to meditate and go to your Akashic record and your superconscious mind. Well, that's what Tesla would do. And he would go there and discover these great truths of nature and love's co-creation. And he would, invent the device, test the device in state, and then bring it back. And he'd make drawings, and then his technicians, and which one of them was Grandpa Stoll, my mentor, and people like George H.W.'s father, who was really an amazing mathematician, which Tesla really wasn't, because, like I said, he was a mystic. So, but to bring this technology into a state that could be industrialized, you need to get the numbers on the bottom of the line, on the page, and have the drawing and have the device work. And that was Tesla's crew, very small crew. Now, this mathematician from Russia did great work for Tesla, but he was there on behest of the, Communist Party, Uncle Joe and, Trotsky and Lenin and et al. Sent him there. And he had a son. And his son was like a little monkey. And he would run around the lab and steal things. Now, if his father stole things, they'd say, "What the heck? You must be," but he never did. His son would just swipe stuff, right? And if he got away with it, he'd give it to his father. His father would send it back to Russia. And if he didn't, he would just be called, Cheeky Monkey, And that book of Curious George was George H.W., right? And as time went by, the Russian was kind of disappeared, but George H. went on to live with Prescott Bush, because Prescott Bush was more than just a crook. Prescott Bush was one of the bankers. In the George H.W., the W spent for one of the great banking families of the esoteria that kind of controlled J.P. Morgan. Everyone thinks J.P. Morgan was the man now. Again, anyone you see taking the limelight, they're just the poster boy, right? Donnie is the poster boy for the failure of the United States. He is going to, he is not doing it single-handedly. The market is slowly being chopped away. With, he he goes to the G20, meets the Chinese guy. They make a 90-day peace pact to fix things, and the market goes up. People who at the bottom, who in the know, sold their stuff and it went up, and then they bought it cheap. It went up. They sold it up there, and then the word comes out, Donnie saying, I don't know, even if we come to an agreement, I don't know if I'm going to sign it because, we're making so much money on these taxes, blah, blah, blah. And then the market drops, 800 points. So it's now at 24,000. It is already past the point of where the metrics would say we're in a recession, right? But it's been bouncing up and down so much, you can't quite, if it keeps going down, it's just like Donnie. He tweets every day 5 or 6 times, and, any one of a trillion things that he has lied, stole, done, any other politician would be on their ear, but not Donnie, because he's kept there to be the person, last man standing when everything falls apart, and he will get the blame. He will go down in history for millennia for the person who destroyed the last great hope of humanity, right before we slide into the Dark Ages. Now, that's just right here on and SNBC, CNN, Fox News, you name it, and that's just the cover story, the comic book. I mean, comic books have more reality going on than what's going on in right in front of our face, right? And the American people are basically shamanically being played, right? To a place where they're going to be held responsible because they are. They don't do something. George was a reptile, wasn't he? Yeah, pretty much. But he was that cheeky monkey. His father had a big yellow hat. And, Curious George, that is the story of George H.W. And if you have a copy of any of those Curious Monkey books, go look at it and see how much he acts. I mean, almost every storybook about Curious George represents, metaphorically, shit that George H.W. did. Just like The Wizard of Oz, that was written by an economist who was trying to tell everyone about, the Federal Reserve and the IRS. But he couldn't, so he made a children's book about it. Prescott made the first computation device. Yeah. Prescott Bush now that guy was totally reptile. He was a banker, right? He was a Wall Street guy, and he made a fortune at the Great Depression, and he was one of the first bankers to back the National Socialist Party, the Nazis, and all during World War II, while our young men were dying in Germany on the hedgerows of France, Prescott Bush was selling aviation fuel to the Nazis and ball bearings and other, precious materials. And and he did it to the last day of the war. He was one of the guys who helped. They were going to have a putsch of FDR, and there was a great war hero, World War One. His name was Butler, and they got him. They said, "We're going to make you president, and we have a million army people who will march, behind you because you're such a great soldier, and you will get rid of the Democratic Party and FDR and all of the Supreme Court, you name it, and we'll take over, and it'll be like Gattaca, Can we talk about something else, Bob? Sure, buddy. What do you want to talk about? I mean, I'm just, going on. How about Bob Lazar's story? Well, Bob's quite an interesting guy. I would say everything that Bob says is true, right? Now, one of the problems about Bob is how it's just like anything else. Everyone glams onto it and, plays it for their own self-interest. But Bob Lazar, I would have to say, is 100% straight up. And I've met him at a few conferences in late '90s, and and he why I think Bob Lazar is straight about what he's talking about is that he isn't trying to be get a dollar out of this. He isn't trying to I mean, we wouldn't have known about Area 51 unless Bob told us about it. And, he got that job because of circumstances, and they didn't do a proper security check. So, they flew him out there to start working. He's a smart guy. He was doing his job. And, when you work out there at Groom Lake, they fly you from Las Vegas, and you land, and you spend a week there, and then they fly you back home. And his wife was thinking he was having an affair, so she had an affair, and then she kind of started to go crazy. And then he didn't want to lose his wife, and so he took them out to the part of the mountain where you could watch what was going on there, and he showed them, and they said, "My God," and so. And he took them out 2 or 3 times, and then they got caught, and then he freaked out. And so he went to the TV guy and went on in shadow and kind of spilled the beans about everything, right? hoping that, you know, they wouldn't kill him. And then because he was in shadow, they said, "We're going to kill you." And so he went back on and with his face and told the story to George Knapp. And and then there was a brouhaha about it, and everybody and his brother tried to interview him, and he did, and he tried to become as public as possible so they wouldn't whack him and his friends and his family and his dog, and um, and then he shut up, right? And so when I met him once, I don't even know why he came to this thing because he didn't really speak, but he came and he was a humble, quiet guy. So from my, reading of him, he's righteous. He's right on. Uh, it was what it was. And all of these things are interconnected, bud. You know, what I started out with banking and this and that. I mean, they're all part of the same thing. And the technology, again, you look at the Bible, flying saucers and all of that. It's all in the Bible, right? And all in every, the Vedas, all in the sacred books. They all talk about this stuff. So it really is pretty obvious that humanity is a lot older than 16,000 or 100,000 or even a million years. I mean, there has been shit going on in our solar system and on this planet, since it started, and there is so much stuff underground that. So here's a good underground story. Um, hmm. You talking about going on now in France, buddy? Why don't you? No more American politics. Okay, okay. But how about Yemen being dicked by the Saudis? Yeah, I mean, well, the Saudis are. All you got to do to understand the Middle East is watch Lawrence of Arabia, and that movie is straight up what it was about. He's representing basically MI6. He's a spy, and he goes out there. You know, the what later would be the Mujahideen, all these Bedouin guys out there, and they all kind of can't get along, and but they all hate the Persians. So he takes their all of their hate for the Persians, who are allies of the Germans, and just with a handful of guys, he defeats them, and that's like a miracle. And he is a real advertising genius. They have a number of myths about the blonde guy coming to lead them. So he's the blonde guy. He had red hair and he dyes it blonde, and he wears the white robes, and he always stands like on top of a hill with the sun behind him, and he gets a handful of guys to basically defeat the Persians and the not the Germans in World War I, right? And that was one of the beginning cracks of World War I, because Germany did not get defeated. They just were painted into a corner, and they said, "Okay, we let's just call it quits for the moment." And the Treaty of Versailles, written by the Dulles brothers, again, bankers who were buds and comrades of Prescott Bush. Yes, Bob Lazar worked at Groom Lake, at S7 or whatever. The real Groom Lake is this gigantic chunk of Nevada, Utah, and Arizona, and New Mexico, and it's like as big as New York State, or and it's just the wilderness out there, and shit goes on, and things have been going on there before this country was a country. There have been people underground. There have been tunnels all over this planet. That's why that little grid of energy. It's an artificial thing. All the pyramids around the planet lie right on top of them. You know, preaching to the chorus, Bob. Yeah, I know. So I'm throwing out chum, wanting you guys to kind of pick up on this because all this stuff is interconnected. You know, it isn't any singular one bad guy, right? It is in this cabal that's been around for a long time, and you know, we have to figure out a new way to deal with it. And really, the only way to deal with this stuff is through love's co-creation. And the only physical tool that we can use is culture. In the Greeks, the most important thing they had was theater and poetry, right? The armies, the guys throwing spears, running around, they were the stepchild. It was first art and poetry, theater, then it was house decoration, and then it was the guys running around, right? And so every culture, you look at Shakespeare, he was the beginning of the Enlightenment. I mean, he was laying it down. And all his plays are like the Bible. They are mathematical in essence. And they're all about stories underlying the mysteries and, you know, you know, you have Some Things Rotten in Denmark. You have Romeo and Juliet. You have Midsummer's Night Dream. That the last soliloquy of Puck, where he says, "Listen, all of this stuff is a dream," and we fairies. And fairies really do exist, and they're not just in Ireland, they're everywhere. They're dimensional characters. And if you want to see things, you want to know what goes bump in the night, all you have to do is meditate and pray and visualize them in your Akashic record, which will give you all the information on what little rabbit hole to go down to. But do you really want to go down a rabbit hole? Or would you rather, there are a lot of places I could have stayed and let all of this blow over. But why am I still in the United States? Because I am stepping up. This is I was born here. I was meant to be, the little pebble in the pond. And as our brother said, we're all little pebble in the pond in this, little cadre, and we're making a tsunami. You know. Oil. Oil is everywhere, buddy. No, the Bedouin tribes are being wiped out because, in their purest form, they're the artist in the first person. It's a lot more deeper than oil. And you have to realize Israel is not, the country of Hebrews. It's the Zionist land of chaos. Those guys, the Anunnaki, and the Anunnaki were the Kaam mob. And the Aryan race. They're the 13th tribe. There were 12 tribes of the Hebrews. The Aryans or the Anunnaki, they're the 13th. They don't. They're the artificial. They're the ersatz of the Jewish race. And the Jewish race is not the Hebrew tribes. And the Hebrew tribes were just another group of Semites, And again, there's more in common with the Hebrews and, the Bedouins than definitely the Zionists, that's for sure. Your grandma was a groom. Jane, you have to explain that. She was. Okay. Mm. Keep going, Jane. Tell us some more. Getting Red Pill by Sunset Al Bob. Yep. Mm-hmm. So we every time we just got to take that step forward. Really, that's all it takes. I've been taking baby steps my whole friggin' life. I just don't go back. I may fall over, but I never go back. Because I try to stay awake. And, I keep telling you guys, I can be as much a moron as anybody else because that's when I'm unconscious. And I would say a good 15 to 20% of my waking life, I'm unconscious. I'm not being awake. I'm not keeping on the ball. I'm not hitting the nail straight. So we just have to keep, taking those steps forward. You know, forget progressives, forget liberals, forget any of that crap. It's an illusion. It's a joke. It's a con game. What's truly the only way this is going to work is it was very deep. The oil that's very deep, Twitch, is in the X Files. There was that oily stuff that took over people. Got into them and went in their little eyeballs, and they became alien creatures. That's the oil the oil that we drive around in our cars. That's a metaphor for that oil that takes over your soul. Well, that's pretty heavy, Jane, um, because that again, that whole secret, um, forget the dark state. It's they've broken away. We are expendable. The human race. This is like Gattaca. They're out there in their plush little space stations and asteroids and on the moon and here and there, and they're having sex with the reptile snakes, and we are just fodder. We are just cat food. But the thing that we have that they don't is this connection to love's co-creation. The black goo. Yep. 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 Black goo killed the super soldier. Exactly. What's his name? So just kind of took him right over, right? And that's what happens. That black goo just takes you over. But that can only happen if you're unconscious. If you're like so drooling at All in the Family, or just needing to have that new pair of sneakers. That's when the black goo can get in you. But if you are awake, as Buddha said, I am awake. You are awake, conscious, and you are taking that forward step to ascend to your higher self. Black goo can't touch you. The reptiles can't touch you. Things that go bump in the night can't touch you. Love conquers all. You've heard that, right? It does. Because everything else, like Saint Germain said, without love, there cannot be creation. And anything created outside of love's co-creation is an illusion. So, what are we doing here? We are trying to move forward by, the only way you can come together. I mean, you can't do anything all by yourself. You got to do it through a community. We have to build this community. I was, visioning an ideal. They'll all come to my deep green. Well, hopefully some of you guys do come and visit because it is pretty amazing. But this platform is a lot more flexible and reaches a lot more people. I mean, what truly blows my mind is that the 215 of you guys and gals are spread across the world. You're not just in New Jersey. You're in Canada. You're in England. You're in Ireland. You're in Germany. You're in Spain. You're in Japan and China, Africa. You're all over the place. And, that's truly amazing, And that's what really is kind of jazzing me up to say, yeah. And the fact that we are, just the five of us here, are so diverse in our worldview and conscious reality, blah, 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 but we all know something's rotten in Denmark here, and we all want to change it. We're not just, rolling over. Yeah, Linda Moulton Howe is one of my favorite. And the alien mutilation. I mean, what I love about Linda is that she just didn't stick with the mutilation. She goes after everything, and she's also a lynch. I mean, when she goes to those conferences, she gets all those people coming together. Because I left that whole scene in the 80s because it was like high school. And it was like, factions, people wouldn't. Me, I want to, go to the cafeteria and eat lunch with everyone, not, the cool kids over there and, the jocks over there and no, no. Yes, you're right. All of the above. There's time travel, multi-dimensional dynamics. I mean, there's close to 2 million people going missing in the United States every fucking year. No one says anything about it. And when you do, I mean, I used to, again, I was a consultant, and so people in every little level would say, "What do you think of this?" And one of the little things I was tasked on was to figure out what was going on. Elements of, I don't want to even call it the Justice Department, but honest law enforcement people were seeing this pattern, and they were like stuck in a little box in their municipalities or whatever. But they would go to these their own conferences and kind of talk behind the doors, like, what the fuck is really going on, and how, and they saw the how drugs and money laundering and organized crime and gun running and missing people and slaves and all of this stuff was interconnected, and yet they couldn't bring the little dots together. So some of those guys I knew said, "Okay, Al, you're the strange one here, and you always look at stuff like you. So here's a couple of folders, and here's a little envelope of money for your expenses, and go check this out." And what I found was that there was this thing called the Devil's Highway that goes from Lexington, Virginia, all the way down 81 at Johnson City, Tennessee, takes goes south on 26 down to Asheville, and then keeps going into Georgia. But Asheville is kind of the one of the you know walls of this. So, but it's really in that, and along that corridor, there are thousands of people going missing, and loads of people being found mutilated, but not like in Linda Moulton Howe's kind of thing, but in a ceremonial kind of way. Nobody talks about this, and in the scholastic world, in the science world, nobody talks about UFOs, or ETs. And within the theological world, nobody definitely talks about ETs, even though in everybody's book, they step all over it. All the different, giants and monsters and gods and demigods. These are all ETs. These are all metaphors. So you just you don't have to be rocket science. You don't have to be Joseph Campbell to see this. And no one talks about it. And I left the scene because nobody wanted to put the dots together. Those are all things we should be talking about then. Yep, okay. So, tell me, folks, I'm going to be quiet here. Tell me, any one of you, what are your experiences? Jane has shared with us, which is a pretty brave thing, Jane. I really appreciate that. Because what Jane is talking about, I am sure Jane, it wasn't just her grandmother or her family, because The thing about abductions and MK Ultra and all that stuff, it runs in the family. If your grandma experienced it, and your mother will experience it, or your father will experience it, and you will, and your sister, and your children, and it just keeps going. And Steven Spielberg did a TV series, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago called Taken on Sci-Fi, and it was brilliant, you know. And it ran, I don't know, for about 10, 15 shows, and it was like a mini series, and it really told the stories. That's what Spielberg does. He tells the story, but never makes the connection, never brings it up into the conversation of the community. It's just, oh, that's just a movie, a TV show, entertainment. No, he was like programming us. So, why would Dr. Greer leave being I told you, Greer is all about being the hero. His psychology of doing this, and that's what humans are motivated by, is their meager little meat puppet psychology. So Greer wants to be the hero. He wants to be remembered as the guy who brought disclosure out. But he's just being played as a puppet. Nice guy, and you have to realize all these people who are doing this, forget their personality, forget the little, high school thing going on in these conferences and communities. Look at the data that they unearth. And so Greer has brought out a lot of what Greer has done that's really, truly, laudable, is that he has this ability to go find, whistleblowers. He's the best he has gathered hundreds of Air Force people, military people, scientists, engineers, people who work for Grumman, that whole cabal. He has found people who will talk about it. Now, the powers that shouldn't be kind of let it happen because they're trying to control the disclosure, and that's why Greer's kind of being played. But his data is good, and all those guys, David Wilcox, Corey Good, and Richard Dolan, excellent. Richard Dolan is really good because he's a very good historian, and he is staying disciplined. That's what. And Linda is very good because she is a really, really good, disciplined, reporter. And she is doing what a reporter is supposed to do. Not get too emotionally involved, but just keep following the picture. And Jim Marr was one of the greats because he was a historian, a great reporter, and a great storyteller, and a great sense of humor. And he was very self-deprecating. He didn't take himself too serious. A lot of these folks take themselves way too serious. And he was a really kind person, right? I met him a number of times, and he was, a lot of people, ooh, don't talk to me, but he would say, hey, how you doing? He was just a really great guy, and he was a very good, could peg you really, really well. He could do a cold reading. And Linda can do a pretty good cold reading, and that's about it. Now, Richard Dolan, he is very good, like I said. He has got the mind of the historian, very disciplined, and he has taken the juice of he has gotten rid of his disbelief. So those three are probably the best I know. Also, Joseph P. Farrell is very good. I like him a lot. His information. He's another scholar, and he's a theologian. So he comes instead of a historical thing like Richard. He's a theologian. So he's very interesting, and he's written. He is so prolific. I mean, God, he's as prolific as David Icke, and David Icke is, he is like, who was the French girl who had the sword? He's like, the English soccer player with the sword, going after the lion. He's a righteous guy because he was one of the earliest guys who didn't just repeat like MUFON guys of the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s just said the same thing over and over and over again. He was like Bill Cooper. He was a brave person who stood up. But See, Bill felt guilty for what he did in the military, so he pushed the envelope to the point where he wanted to die. Right? He was going, ah! Right? He wanted to die because he felt guilty. Where David is like touched, he got the shaman to blow the Anunnaki up his nose, and it like just burned out the cobwebs up there, and he saw things, and he just kept at it, and because he was good looking, young athlete. Everyone knew him. He went off to some soccer thing in Brazil. He came back and like he's at a thing, and he said, this is just a game. What I really want, and the camera's on. What I really want to tell you is, the queen is a reptile. And he went from there. And even though everyone for the first 10, 15 years called him a jerk and nuts, he just kept plugging, and he was protected, and that's why I know he's a righteous guy. Okay, let's see. It's true about aliens? Question. Okay, so we talked about career, tracking our genes. Yes, man, everyone is tracked up the kazoo. I mean, right now, this conversation is being looked at, and they're taking down everything, but that's okay because we are basically injecting this concept of love's co-creation into the hidden hand, and secretly they understand that this has to happen because all through history, people like us, this small little band of merrymakers, have changed the world, and that's okay. I mean, these guys are really painting themselves into a corner. They know they have to rebrand this. What are they going to do? If they have to, they'll have a nuclear war and kill three-quarters of us. But that's they don't want to do that because they realized. I mean, the last time they did that, they threw humanity into a 900-year, dark age, which wasn't very good for business. Joan of Arc. Yep, that's the one. So that's David Icke. He's the male version of Joan of Arc, and he's driven to do this. Whereas, again, Steve is the perfect example. They're all archetypes. Perfect example of wanting to be the famous guy. And that was Mark Zuckerberg. I mean, Zuckerberg and Steve and Bill, they're morons, They're white boys, even though Steve was Muslim, meaning they bent over for the hidden hand. They were the poster boys for bringing this technology to oppress the masses, but we're the example of the unexpected consequence, and the hidden hand is going, what should we do with these guys? Now they know that we're not, we're a bunch of chuckleheads, there's not a big deal. We're not a threat, a physical threat in how they see threat. Come on, I'm an old, broken up guy who's homeless. Really? He's a threat? I don't think so. But we are that pebble that's going to be, that is not going to be, we are the tsunami, that's going to wash this away, and we're not going to fight the hidden hand or any or the above. We are going to forgive, help, and co-create through love and through art, alive but disoriented. Interesting time. She lived to 99. So, Jane, did you ever get her to tell you stories? Did you ever tell her? Because it's like a lot. It sounds like your family, where what is known, has the knack or touched, right? And that either, if you're stuck in this material world, it can kind of drive you crazy. And pretty much all of us here in this cadre have had a taste of that. Some of us have been luckier than others. Some have been blessed with this circumstance and situation that's kept us out of harm's way, but still given us the bumps and bruises to realize what's going on. You know. Yeah, that guy's pro disclosure. And again, all these conferences are great because people like him, are given the opportunity and safety to come out and tell their story, right? Just like this chat is a place where everyone on it is given the safe haven to say what they want. And we all can appreciate everything that we all say, no matter how it sounds. Some people who are like really in their own little bubble would freak out about half the things that we're commenting here to each other, right? Oh, how could you say that to me? But no, we are all going, it's like the shaking of the tree so the fruit falls, and we are getting better and better at this. Yes, because that's called fear, Jane. When you're tight-lipped about it, I mean, the best way. I mean, as a shrink, I've been deprogramming people and exercising people and all of that, for a good 40 years, and I was doing it when I was a child and didn't know what I was doing, and I have the knack. They say that, he's got the knack, that boy. I mean, when I'm with people who are in that scene, and that's why I was in all these scenes, because people go, yeah, he's got the knack. And I was humble and never pushy and never egocentric. ETs, and they definitely are. They are definitely masters of multidimensional worlds. Definitely, definitely, definitely. I keep saying this. We have very limited senses. 0.005. That's it of the universe. That's all we can see. And the only way we can see further than that is through our Akashic record. And then these great thinkers and scientists and inventors go, realize, oh, I can do this, like Edgar Casey, He could read a book, put it under his pillow, fall asleep, and know everything in the book. And so there is a good percentage, about 16% of the human race has this big, we all have it, but 16% or so of the human race within all of the different races, all our relations, have this ability to really be cognitive, to be awake of what's going on and try to put the dots together. So everyone here has the knack. You wouldn't be on this chat unless you had the knack, unless you had it in you, unless you were one of those 16%. And what's great about all you guys is that you're all friggin' different. Your cultural dynamics are like all over the place, and that is the best thing, because when you're a mutt, you're the healthiest. When you are multi all over the place, this group cannot be taken out. And let's say for some reason I leave, and that's why I'm trying to do 2 shows a day to put a lot of this stuff on this channel, and that's why I'm telling all of you to put it on your hard drives, your thumb drives, CD-ROMs, so it will be around. Because if you go back and look at each of these shows like I do, because I'm going back and I didn't realize you had to put, description of what the thing is and then tag words. And so I've been going back and looking at them all. And they all have, and I love you, buddy, for it. You constantly push me, constantly keep me going forward. Okay, we already heard that story. What's the next thing, right? I love that about you, buddy. And but I look at all of these. I've got close to 200 of those. I haven't figured out. I can see how many views there are, and I can see how many of you guys there are, but I haven't been able to see other, metrics of what we're doing here. And at some point soon, I know some of you 215 will come and grab me and take someplace, and we will, because this is really a hodgepodge of what I got going on here, right? I know this platform and this technology can be used a lot better than I'm using it, and I need help with this, right? And so but it'll come at its time. And what we're doing right now is putting down show by show by show, and each of these shows, and that's why I'm saying you should put them on another medium so they're not just hanging in the cloud or hanging on the YouTube frame, but it's in your pocket. All of these stories are different and are shamanic and energetic frame. And as a shamanic frame, it's an alchemist tool. And through the psychosocial, cultural, forensic, anthropologic framework of that shamanic frame, we can define and we can reframe and we can remanipulate genetically what is going on. No matter what aliens put this down, no matter what freak show thinks they're running it, we use these tools that I'm trying to lay out for you guys. We can truly be that tsunami. We are that tsunami. I keep saying we can be. We're already that. And that's why I keep doing 2 shows a day. Well, I've had many of them, but and so vision quests, again, are a tool, right? It's an experience you have that gives you that platform to see past the illusion, right? So I've had many, because as an anthropologist, I travel the world living with tribal people all over the place, and within the construct of their cultural dynamic, I had vision quests with lots of different folk. But there is a continuity of storyline that goes through it, and that is I'm here to assess everyone who comes in contact with me to become the artist in the first person, the savage. Just like Brave New World, go read that book, The Guy Who's the Savage. I'm here to assist you to be born again into that frame of the artist of the first person, right? And you're all artists. I can see it in all your energies that you have this artistic bent. And, people your whole life have been telling you, no, don't go there, don't go there, don't go there. And I'm saying, yes, go there, go there, go there. And I'm here to help you. So that's the main drift of my vision quest, is to assemble a cadre of folks across the planet who will be the artist in the first person, who will become, the shaman, Al Bob. That's like a title rather than a name. A shaman is a teacher, right? Owl is a probably the most magical animal totem there is, because the owl is the bringer of truth. And you look at all of these esoteric, occult, dark things. They're like little totem is the owl. Look at those morons at the Bohemian Grove. They got an 80-foot owl that they dance around naked in front of and drink blood and have sex with each other. That's not the my owl. That owl comes from the money magic of Babylon. My owl is more the indigenous owl. Moloch, yes, thank you, Dragon. Moloch, that's the owl that we don't want to be. Moloch. So, Dragon, Tell us about Moloch, where he came from, what his stripes were, um, what culture, you know, how he's connected to Baal, Lord Baal. And that's, these little, yeah, snowy owls. And, those little guys are so cute, so sweet. You just want to cuddle them, but man, they will mess you up. They got talons like you can't believe. They got a beak that can like go through armor, right? And that's why they're my totem. And they're always around me wherever I go. Like when I moved into the school, and there were copperheads in the basement, right? So I went down there. I kind of, I had my little dowsing finger out, and oh, look at that. And I lifted it off the top of this floor, and there's this whole nest of, of copperheads. And wherever copperheads are also rattlesnakes, you kind of have to just go look for the dry spot. So I went over there, found that, unearthed them, and I didn't bother them. I didn't hit them with stick. I didn't threaten them. So they didn't go to me. They kind of like looked up, and I said, "Listen, guys, you know, you're all my relations. I'm not going to mess with you. But in a very short period of time, tick, 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 my brother owls and my sister owls are going to show up and eat you for lunch. So just a little word to the wise, get out of town or you'll be dead. And I'm not going to do it, I'm just going to put this little board back on top of you. I'm going to cover you up. But, within a very short time, there's going to be some owls coming in here, and they're going to take you guys. You're going to be, their appetizer, right? So they did. They split, and the ones that didn't got eaten for breakfast. And within 2 weeks of me moving up here, the tree had the owls, and I have this one owl that always kind of follows me, and it is about 4 foot high and has a wingspan of somewhere about 12 to 20 feet. And like after the little white guys and the barn owls showed up, the 4 foot guy showed up, and he's not on anyone's like chart. They, now in mythology, yes, but right. And the bottom line about Moloch and owls with those guys, my little 4 foot owl, he's like a leprechaun, where you kind of look at fairies, and they had this guy. Yes, the eagle owl. Yep, that's what bird people call them. Yes, because their wingspan is as big as that. But they're not really. I mean, they hang out. What's the state that has 1,000 lakes? Minnesota, one of those things over there. They hang out there, and they are seen, and people take pictures of them, but they're not really captured, and they're not really, they don't let themselves be studied, just like Sasquatch. But Sasquatch, that guy. Have any of you guys seen the commercial for, some kind of, woodsman's, beef jerky? And there's this guy camping out, and the Sasquatch shows up, and the one camper guy freaks out and runs away, and the Sasquatch chases him down and like eats him for lunch. The other brave camper boy, kind of just looks up and tells Sasquatch to sit down by the side of the fire and opens up a box hands him the box of the beef jerky with the logo on it. And then the next scene, you see them running through the forest like, lovers. So that is Sasquatch. They just show up and they say, how are you going to treat me? If you treat them nice, and just kind of, hey, how you doing? They'll stick around. If you freak out, they just open a door and walk out. And I mean, I've been with people who, are trying to study these guys, within the paranormal world. And when I was part of the U.S. Psychotronic Society, and we had different factions. We had ladies in muumuus, we had rocket scientists, we had all kinds of people looking at all kinds of things. And that's why I liked that group, because it was so friggin' diverse. And they wanted to party. They didn't know how to party. And so that was my job, to be the party guy and to try to get all those different variables kind of somewhat working together. Right? Yeah. Sasquatch, a multi-dimensional being. And that's why they're not seen that long. Yeah, the longheads are quite interesting, because that's a whole stranger than strange. Again, Steven Spielberg makes his last Indiana Jones thing, where it starts out with the commies breaking into Area 51, and like kicking over the Jewish flower pot, and they want the alien bodies, right? And because they want the head of one of those aliens, and Stephen got it 100% right, especially that last scene where they're all those tall bodies, and they put the last head on there, and they and come one creature. That was a very interesting metaphor to symbolize that this guy was a multidimensional creature, that he was living in all those other dimensions at the same time, right? And his office was down there in South America. Let's see, what else are we saying here? So all of these things that we're talking about, they're all together, integrated, right? Now, if we look at them as the UFO community, and it's not just I'm using that as a general everybody. Um, they look at it in the same way. Whether they're looking at the paranormal, or they're looking at UFOs, or it's always in that same kind of conspiratorial kind of motif, because it is taken from the point of view of the hidden hand. It is a conspiratorial motif, because those guys only think about ego-driven power, not all our relations or love. Forget, they don't even know what that is. That's why we have to shine love's light on these guys, because then they'll melt. It'll be just like in the Wizard of Oz. The Wicked Witch lights up her you know broom handle, and she sets the scarecrow on fire, and Dorothy grabs a bucket of water and throws it on the scarecrow, and it drenches the scarecrow's um, fire, and hits the Wicked Witch. And, melting, melting. Oh, so what is water? Water is the salient. We are the bags of water, right? We are all the bags. We are the avatar ugly bags of water. Well, that water, holy water, that's what it is. All water is holy, because all water brings life. All life brings the opportunity for truth. So that water is what we are. We are the little pebbles dropped into the water, makes the waves, makes the tsunami, and we will wash over all of this corruptness that's an illusion, and we will refresh. When your little computer wants to be refreshed, we will refresh this whole dynamic. And all of the component parts that are all over the place will fall into line like a jigsaw puzzle, and we will go, whoa, and we will all of our relations will lay down like the lamb with the lion, and we will ascend to our next step. And we'll have another challenge in front of us, but at least we won't be stuck in our lower chakras of our dick, risen into our heart, which will allow us to ascend higher and higher. But we got to get out of our dick. Um, so, and guys and girls, we all have dicks in one form or another. or a clitoris. How guys have big clitorises, women have more sensitive clitoris. However you want to look at that metaphor. Well, Jane, you're taking it a little too literal. Their heads are too big to survive in this gravity. Well, they're not in this gravity. They're in another dimension. Even when we're looking at them, and that's why there were like nine of them that were the same guy because boop, 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 boop. And when he became singularity, right, and he kind of went up into the ceiling, and then all those stones turned into a flying saucer, dimensional flying saucer, and it takes off, right? And what did it use as its fuel but the ego of the Russian scientist girl? I want to know. I want to know. Well, baby, she knew. She became their friggin' spark plug. Her little eye. I never wanted to be read in because I didn't want my eyes to light up like that. And I've seen too many people catch fire like that, and it's not a pretty sight. Ooh, boo, boo, boo. Yes, Dr. Dragon. Twitchy. So, LOL, laugh out loud. Yes, it is a joke. It is. It's the eternal joke. Like the thing that turned me on, right? So, yeah, okay, I was a pretty cheeky monkey my whole life, right? And a bunch of and people since I was born were going, oh, you're going to be this. You're going to, I felt like a chunk of, I felt like Gumby being sculpted, right? When I was about, I don't know, how old was when I first went to college? I mean, when I was matriculating through college, I guess I was 19 or 18. And, I was there in the theater department, and I was already working at what my teachers wish they had that job, right? There, because Mary Tulin wanted me there. And there were a lot of things in that school that I played around in the radio station, and I played around in this, and I got into creative writing and writing plays and directing and doing things I hadn't, yes, I, lit stages, I, designed sets, I had acted, I danced, I sang, but at that school, I wrote and I wrote plays and I directed them, and that's kind of fun, because I worked for people like Herbert Berghoff who wrote and directed, and I worked for the Living Theater, Judith Molina and Julian Beck and that whole crew, and I was around all these other avant-garde writer dudes, and my whole thing was, well, I'm the mystic electrician, I'm the healer guy, I'm a photographer, filmmaker, I'm the magician, and they're doing all that stuff, and I like all that stuff, and I appreciate everything they do, and I'd help them with it. When Alan was my roommate, he'd be sitting around writing, and he would say a sentence, and he said, "What word should I use, Al?" He's like 28 and a pretty world famous poet, and I'm like 15, and I would just I was like idiot savant. So we're all idiot savants here, but that's how things get done, right? And I was at Hofstra University, and they'd have billboards, and if you want to do this, and this club's doing that, and I saw this thing saying, if you want to have eternal peace and cosmic wisdom, come to room 304 on Thursday at 2 in the afternoon. And I said, well, that's interesting. So and usually when things were like that on the bulletin board, I would show up, and most of the people in there would be hot women, So that was like my little barometer. Okay, I'll try this out. Yeah, that sounds interesting. So I showed up, and there were a couple of, I'm always there early. My Aunt Grace taught me to always be early. And I'm sitting there, and there were a couple of guys there before I was, and they were like kind of anxious guys. I think they were trying to find anything to cool the little squirrel in their brain. And then some interesting women walked in, a few more guys, and there was maybe about 12, 13 folks. I looked around, and they weren't the usual suspects. They weren't the jocks. They weren't the lawyers. They weren't the pre-med. They weren't the this. They weren't the that. These were like guys like me, the interesting folk. And and that was Hofstra had a few of those, especially in the art department, especially in the theater department. So anyway, we're waiting there, and then right at on the dot, uh, this little chunky, what he looked like was an Umpa in you know the Chocolate Guys movie with Gene, what's his name? All that one Indian guy who was all the Umpa. He looked like that. He had a turban on his head, right? He had a white suit and a turban on his head, and he walked in. He goes, "I am here. I am, Guru Larry, and I'm here to show you mysteries and beauty of transcendental meditation. And now I want you to take, he did exactly what. Breathe in 20% more and out 30, and breathe in, and we were doing that, and we were trying to really kind and quiet your mind, just focus your conscious mind on your breath, and he did that for a good minute. Then he snapped his fingers like that, and we were flying through the universe, and solar systems were shooting by, and it was like, and we couldn't see any of us or him. We weren't in the classroom. We were out in transcendental space, and it was like he had a microphone into our brain. And he was like, when you're on a tour on a bus, and there's a guy with a microphone, and over here is the, you know, Washington, blah blah blah, and over here is and he was showing us the esoteric and occult universe. That was the little journey he was taking us on, and he was showing us this mystery and that mystery. There were all these mysteries, and if you read the Bhagavad Gita, if you read all of the Indian Vedic material, he was coming from that point of view, and he was throwing in Christian metaphors and Muslim metaphors and Buddhist he was throwing in everybody's Shinto. He was because they're all kind of cousins to each other, and he was definitely making that connection of all our relations. And I was really, I was no longer thinking of the girls. This was like, I was it, and I could feel tears coming down my face. It felt like a waterfall was coming down my face. And then all of a sudden, I started hearing this tee hee hee hee, tee hee hee hee, hee hee hee, this little laugh. And he goes, no, 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 don't look at that. That's just the joke of the universe. That is the escape route of the lazy, the people who don't want to put. And he's trying to coach us into getting past the joke of the universe, and he's telling us all the reasons why we shouldn't be looking at this. And then all of a sudden, I am on the floor laughing hysterically. I mean, laughing so hard my sides are hurting, and everyone around me is laughing as hard as I've seen every human being laugh, and we're all pissing ourselves, and some of us are shitting ourselves, and some of us are throwing up the black oil, and I can't even move, and I just kind of move my little eyeball to where he was, and all I see is his back and the door closing, and I hear in my head, these Americans, they are so lazy. They are a waste of time. I don't know why I waste my time with them. And that was when I really said, I have to study this. And that's really what put me on the path. That experience in 1969, 70. I got to school in fall of 69, and 70 was the spring semester. Anyway, I'm pretty sure it was the fall, so 69-ish. And that's really, and I already had, I met Madame Olga Kluber. I already had, Billy Kluber was my, mentor, Nobel laureate. I had a lot of people who had that in them, and they saw the knack in me, and didn't want to like spoil it, and they didn't want to be the person to try and open that can of worms and fuck it up, right? They were trying to scope me in more superficial ways to expose me to this, that, and the other thing, and wait for a guy like this who came out of the East. I think, you know, all of 20, not even that, all of 15 minutes, and that guy changed my life forever. Put me on this path. He brought me to you guys. So that's how I got on this scene, Jane. And all of the other stuff was mixed in there, but that was the thing that was like, David Icke getting the Aronofsky blown up his nose by a Brazilian shaman. We all have our own little moments of when this happens to us. And again, I'm not like that guy in a white suit with a turban. I'm just wearing a hoodie here, talking to you on YouTube. But I am your sensei, Al Bob. And Bob, so Al, sensei is teacher. Al is, the bringer and ripper of truth. And Bob, if you take the mathematical dynamic of Bob, he goes all the way back to like before time and space, when things were still dark. Bob was the physical representation of what people think of God, but he's not that. He is he is like when love's co-creation of light wants to have a physical representation of what people think God is in the form that's not an avatar. Bob is the character in Job. There's God and the devil, and they're sitting in a bar smoking a bong, and they're drinking beer, and Bob says, "Oh, look at my man Job, isn't he really great?" And the devil goes, "Yeah, of course he's a hot piece of crap for you, buddy. Wait, it's because you gave him everything. Take some of that shit away. See what he does. He'll curse you." And Bob, being the Joker, the Cheeky Monkey, that's what we started out as, Cheeky Monkey, he fucks with poor Job, his best dude down there. He makes his life, takes it all away, kills everyone, takes all his wealth away, makes him a pauper, gives him sores on his body, brings him close to death. And Job never lose faith, because he's done believing Bob, but he does have faith in love's co-creation. So that's why I'm your Sensei Al Bob. That's the etymology of that, right? So I'm a cheeky monkey. I could put, Sensei Al Cheeky Monkey, but Bob's more mysterious, right? Cheeky Monkey kind of brings you a vision right away of, George Herbert Walker Bush, and the Walkers were the basically nasty banking family of the Dutch that basically wiped out 600 million fucking Indians, and Barbara Bush came from that scene, that crew, and her mother got knocked up by Aleister Crowley. So Barbara Bush, the wife of George H.W., the mother of George W. and all the rest of those clones, was sired by Aleister Crowley. So the creator of the Church of Satan basically was the foundation of those two presidents, George Herbert Walker and George W. And there's another clown in that crew who probably will be president again. But, after Donnie, we will no longer have presidents like we thought we did, right? He's breaking the mold. And, Pence is going to be the next one. He is going to be Donald Sutherland in the Hunger Games, So anyway, what else are we saying here? Banana. Right on, buddy. Actor Boo Boo. Well, that's what I was trying when I was Cowboy Boo Boo Baba. Who is that moron in Switzerland or Sweden who's the biggest YouTube presence in the universe? Oh, I can't. His name is so weird. I can't spit it out. But that guy, when I realized I was looking at him, because I'm trying to figure out this YouTube thing and how to. Yep, that's the guy. Yep, PewDiePie, right? I want to make a character called Puddin Pie, you know, Puddin Pie, and I want to be Puddin Pie is going to be the soupy sales of the 21st century. Any of you guys know Soupy Sales? Have you ever seen that? He had a children's show that was on at 5 p.m. and the majority of the people who watched Soupy Sales were college kids smoking pot and drunk mothers high on their mother's little helpers, and because he kind of looked like Tab Hunter. You know, he had that sweater and he looked like he just came off a tennis court, but he was like really a dirty comic that didn't quite make it up in the Jewish ring of comics up there in upstate New York. And he kept telling jokes like, I took my girlfriend to the baseball game last night and I kissed her between the strikes and she kissed me between the balls. I mean, he kept saying stuff like that all the time. And because everyone was either stoned or drunk, and his little window of being on television was like between 1966 and 19 maybe 70. I don't even know if he made it till then, because he did stuff like what he got thrown off the air for good for was it was a New Year's Day, right? And he goes to, okay, kiddies, your mom and dad are like really got a bad hangover and they're in bed. So all you got to do is sneak in there and open up their pocketbooks, wallets, and take out all of that paper, green stuff with dead presidents on it, and put in an envelope and send it to me. And he gave them the address at the station was at, and he received like $100,000 over a week the next week. So he got thrown off the air for that. But he used to have these sock puppets, right? Black Tooth and White Fang and others. And he had a friend of his who was the angry neighbor who was a rageaholic. That was that character. And then he played all these other characters who were socks, and they would just come to the front door and you just see the sock. And that, as a young man, every one of those characters reminded me of a politician. So I basically call all politicians sock puppets. So so I was trying out to be the Will Rogers of the 21st century, being Cowboy Bob, and that was okay, but didn't quite carry it off. But I want to be the Puddin Pie Soupy Sales of the 21st century. I've seen Soupy Sales. It has been rated in the top 10 of bent cartoon of all time. And yeah, so he had, he was a kid show and he had a cartoon and he would do these skits. He was like Pee Wee Herman of the 60s. And and Pee Wee Herman was the same thing. He was strange, man. If you ever watched Pee Wee Herman on acid, it had a whole different meaning. And I am pretty blessed because I don't even have to do acid to be on acid. Guy, I keep telling you to meditate, and once you really get the hang of meditation, when you go to your super conscious mind, you can flush your brain with DMT. And that's better than any kind of rave drug there is. And, so just keep trying. And remember, 20% in, 30% out. And so Soupy Sales was of that, and he was the first. Soupy Sales first, and the cartoon he had was this character called Tom Terrific, and Tom had this little oil, you know, not an oil can, but the thing that you put the oil in the engine. You need a funnel. He put a metal funnel on his head, and and steam would come out, and he would get ideas to fix the problem that he was in. I'm gonna put on my thinking cap, and it was this right. So that was Soupy Sales. Yep, children's show. Exactly, buddy. See, buddy is our historian within the kaleidoscope of what is important, which is being the chief. See, buddy, you hit the nail on the head. You've got the eye on the ball within the context of this chat here, which is it's what is it titled? Cheeky Monkey. And that's what we are, buddy. You and I and everyone here is a cheeky monkey but you are the Albert Einstein of cheeky monkeys. Me, I am the Groucho Marx of cheeky monkeys. The one who offhandedly made demonetization of YouTube a reality. Seen should be sales has been rated top 10. Yep. A cartoon children's show. Yep. I've done a ton of DMT. Dr. Bob, I am. It's always good to meet the goddess. She is one hot babe. A humble worm. Okay. Well, that's kind of important. Without worms, we would not exist. Oh, humble worm. Because the humble worm makes this garden planet work. Drilling all those little aerating holes, defecating in them, nice little stuff to start off the little sprouts. So, the humble worm is one of the major ancient spirit guides. Ant, turtle, humble worm. the magic three. So, yes, you are, buddy. You are the humble worm. And I love you for it. Well, I can be trusted for that, if nothing else. Okay, so we're doing pretty good here. 1 hour, 27 minutes, and 50 something seconds. And I think we've touched, this chat definitely, we've taken some nice baby steps forward. And Sue, let's see, 128, right? So 130, that may be a stopping point. And so right now, I'm going to kind of go into a meditative state with you all. And at 1:30 and 30 seconds, if you guys catch on fire, we'll keep going. If not, we'll say goodnight. Okay? Breathing in deep. We're inhaling the prana, the life force of the universe. It is going all through. All that swirling energy going through our bodies, lighting up our cells, our mitochondria, and all of our mitochondria, all of our relations, this cadre that we're here, feel all of our mitochondria being energized together. That swirl is swirling us all together. See it clearly. And you're breathing out all the waste products. You're cleansing your body with your breath. And you're being grounded by your chi. You feel your mitochondria connecting through the whole lymphatic system down to your feet, to your chi. Feel it clearly. And you're in your subconscious mind, and you open up your Akashic record, and you lean on the two pages with each of your hands, and you're dumping all of whatever troubles you. Close the book. You see your librarian, and in her eyes is the truth. You see your animal totem, and in your animal eyes totem, you see the understanding. And in the eyes of your guardian angel, you see the eyes of love's protection. You walk over your bridge of your id to your superconscious mind. You step into it, and you are there now. Wake up. You're in your superconscious mind. So let's have a chat from there. Anyone have anything to say? What you saw, what you feel, what you got out of this chat that brings, just like the little Indian guru with the turban tried to do with me, and he did not fail because he put me on the path. So what path, what little steps, what baby steps, what big steps have we taken here? Anyone got anything to say about it? Am I still connected? Did we get unconnected? Are we still here? Is anybody here? Say something so I know, because... Okay. So a frog. Tall grade. Cloaked. So past that cloak, what did you see? We're here, Al. What did you see, buddy, behind that cloak? What did you see? Because hybrid tall gray is just that. It's a hybrid. What's deeper there? Okay. What did you see in that hybrid gray? Because that is an important little metaphor message, especially if you went through my eyeballs. We were all connected there. Does anyone have any perspective? It smiled. What kind of smile? A kind of gentle smile? A cheeky monkey smile? Or a kind of angry, I'm going to eat you, motherfucker kind of smile? Okay. Now, things may seem strange, but we're all connected in this chat. You know, I am pumping out this little shamanic battery pack to you all, and not just you six, but all our relations. So you're seeing stuff not just from me and not just from the six, but from all our relations. So, and I'm trying to, we're jumping into the pond, but it's pretty deep. Reassuring, gentle smile. Good. Good, good, good. And that kind of shows, even, I think what snaps you out of that is we see things that are scary, right? But they may not really be scary. That scene where Will Smith is, going through the training, he takes the test and he's got his gun, and all of these characters come out, the scary monster with the handkerchief, and the all the different monsters, and the guys in uniforms are shooting the shit out of those guys, and Will's kind of looking around, and who does he blow the head off of but little Sally Ann with pigtails, and you know Q or G or M or whatever the head guy was, said, so why do put a bullet between the eyes of a sweet little pigtail girl? And goes, well, that monster up there, I thought he was scary, but then I saw that he just had a cold, and this guy was, and he kind of made thoughtful, look at what was going on, and then he said, well, the girl with the pigtail, she's in the middle of the hood amongst all these monsters, and She's got all these books about astrophysics and, things that will blow up the universe. She was the only one that really seemed like a threat to me. So you see a scary monster, you hold on to that. And you did, buddy. And you saw that smile through my eyeball, right? And that first thing kind of shocked you, snapped you out of the vision. But the residual that then it's like that little, you eat Indian food and you have the Sumatra kind of taste in the back of your mouth. And that was the gentle, reassuring smile that gives you the truth. This ain't, even though he is this scary, tall, gray guy, he's not really going to eat your lunch, right? So, okay, that was a very good exercise. You were all connected, you were all there, you all felt it, and there were others in the in all our relations of the cadre, and people even not quite in the cadre were affected by it. And that's pretty interesting. Good. And when we have those little steps, we can keep going. Exactly. And that's why the breath is so important, because really, you read about transit and you have to empty your mind. Well, good luck with that. The tool to empty your mind, to shut down that little squirrel in your head on the wheel, because to breathe that extra 20%, you actually have to consciously think about it. Because breathing is an autonomic thing. I mean, if you had to think about breathing, you'd fall over unconscious 5 or 6 times a day. So your autonomic system does just enough. But to breathe above that just enough, that extra 20%, that actually takes your conscious mind to go. And when you're doing that, you're not thinking about paying the bills or your socks or the baseball game. All you can think about is breathing deep. And then when you breathe out 30% more, you're breathing in 20, you can do that, but to breathe out the 30, it really takes a lot of effort, and you have to push your diaphragm up. And when you do that, the next breath is like easy. That next 20, that second 20% is like, yeah, I can do this. Yeah, I can. But you still have to use your conscious mind. And then, and once you do that 4 or 5 times when you first start off, bingo, you kind of get lightheaded, and you close your eyes, you're going to see the white light behind your eyelids, And then you still are focusing your conscious mind on your breathing. And then that white light becomes like a laser beam, and you can shine it past your eyelids into your subconscious mind. And you go, oh, I don't want to go there. That's where the monsters live. No, that laser beam goes in there, hits the back wall, boom, it lights it up. And you realize, hey, this is a library. It's not scary. Then you see your 3 guides to your left, and your nice reading table with a nice bright light on it, so everything's in focus. And this really comfortable chair that puts you just, you're not slouching back, you're not slouching up. You're in this perfect position where all of your chakras are lined up, and the energy is like zing, 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 zing. And you are electrified, right? And then you see your Akashic record, and you see the image on that, it's this big book, and the whole library is made out of these, even the fireplace that has the eternal flame in it, that keeps you not too warm, not too cold, just right. That's the Goldilocks environmental system there, the eternal flame. and it energizes everything. It is the eternal flame is the prana that you're breathing. That's the eternal flame. And your librarian brings your Akashic Records, gigantic book. You open it up. The 2 pages that it opens up are blank pages. That's your life. It's a blank page. But then you see coming out of the page this big TV screen or computer screen or however you want to visualize it. And around it are 28 little screens, right? So you see whatever you need to see there. You can put whatever, you want to take that angst to the person, the argument, how you feel bad, somebody said something mean, you got a parking ticket, you got a speeding ticket, whatever, your girlfriend or your boyfriend has dissed you, your boss is, whatever angst you might have, you put it in the book, you close it, bingo. It is no longer in you. It is no longer bothering you. It's not in your bag of water. You open it up, there it is in the book. You can see it, and then there's 28 little visions of it from every single angle there is, and you get perspective. And that's what the Akashic Record is about, to give you perspective about your life, past, present, future. Because it doesn't matter, because they're all happening at the same time. So that's exactly what we just experienced in that little exercise, right? And you all had visions, Buddy, he was right there and verbalized what it was. Twitchy was saying, I'm thinking too hard. And he is, because he's not breathing deep enough. And the rest of you all had some experience. So maybe you might... and Rab saw the ripple before I said it, right? So he was getting the experience that, time is not he was, in the past, present, and future all at once. And that's where your Akashic Record is. And your superconscious mind, when you get up and walk to the right through the door over the bridge of your id into your superconscious mind, that's, the next evening little gallivant, we're going to go over there. I mean, we went over there, and you kind of, I did a fast thing because I was trying to stay, within the 1 hour, 30-minute thing. But I said that if you guys, stepped up and said something, I would keep going. So, anybody else have something to say? That was very good, Mr. Rab, or Miss Rab. You got the picture of the time dilation. You saw it. I mean, right there and then. The ripple, that is the time dilation. That's how it, in physics, in math, it is described. So you got it. Anybody else had a vision? Anybody else got something to say? And it's 1:42 and 50 seconds. So we'll wait, till 1:44 and 44 seconds. And if no one else has something amazing to say, I will say good night, sweet dreams. Let's, after this, in an hour, who's ever ready to go to sleep or wants to take a nap, join me in dream time. Whereas, you other guys are probably going off to work or just having breakfast, and have a beautiful day. Whatever part of the planet you're in, whatever time zone you're at, have a beautiful day. I love you all. You're the best. You're the greatest adepts I've had. And I've had a bunch. And you guys really do step up every single time. That's why I do this, because that's what I'm getting out of this, is that every time in the morning or night I come online, there you are. And Buddy sticks around till 3:30 in the morning, or is that afternoon, Bud? Well, what that means is, so we were in a shamanic state, and even with your eyes open, it's just like this. Here's the chat. My face is, I'm looking at my screen, and I'm there, but the chat is in front of it. And so what you were experiencing, the illusion, because you're so, saturated by it, you saw that, but you saw the ripples of time, the swirls of space time. You were seeing other dimensions in its mathematical form. That's very, very cool. After four, oh, after four, okay. Gotcha. Boo. Okay, anything else? I'll give it another 5 minutes. Because each time you guys pop in, you pop in with something pretty like Mr. Rab there. He was basically he was having a heavy duty synchronistic deja vu because he was in two places at the same time. Right? And most people do not see that. So, Mr. Rab, or Miss Rab, um, okay, but till next time, love you. Stay well. It was great hanging with you tonight. Boo. So, anybody else have um, experience from our little meditative moment exercise? Boo. Twitchy, are you just coming online? Were you part of? Okay, practice, practice, practice. I meditate 5, 8 times a day to keep me up straight. Well, we love you, Twitch. And until next time, so 147.05. Ghost, hello there, friend. So, Ghost, were you here for the whole chat? Did you have a vision or an experience? Some people call it Scotland. I love that place. It's like one gigantic big golf course. I love the lawns of Scotland. I know it represents oppression for the last 900 years, but, and there's all those rich old part Scots, their great, 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 great grandsons sometimes do some pretty interesting thing. One of my great teachers, his name was Archie, and he was the guy who put forth the idea that, all the ley lines and the pyramids were a planetary machine. And he put that forth in the 1920s, and everyone laughed at it a lot. So Scotland is one of my favorite places, and Edinburgh and the other city are both great cities and both great energetic spaces of truth and knowledge. Okay, I'm going to go into a little prayer mode because I'm going to sign off at 1 hour, 50 minutes, and 50 seconds. In about an hour, a minute and a half or so. So I'm just sending you all love, just bathing you in love. I'm lifting up your spirits. I'm opening up your chakras. So whether you go to sleep or off to work or whatever you do, till we meet again, this will stick with you. Like a good thing, like a good meal. This will stick with you. To your ribs, as my grandma would say. And whatever hurts you is being lightened, lessened. Whatever emotional stress you might be under, it too, just see yourself as that balloon letting that stress out. Whatever angst or suffering or misery you have, it is lessening. And whatever joy and vision and intellect and understanding and love's co-creation is getting stronger in you. And every day, in every way, you're taking the piece of the earth and making it you. See that strongly. See that clearly. Be that now. You are that spirit of love's co-creation. See it clearly. Feel it in every cell of your body. Feel your mitochondria just humming with that love. And here we are. 1 hour, 50 minutes and 50 seconds. And I love you all. And I'll see you next time or in dream time because I'm going to sleep now. Love you guys. Take it later. Take it easy. Take it sweetly.